If you've ever wondered how two of the main losers of World War II became global powers once again, this is the video for you. We're going to explore one of the most fascinating aspects of post-war history, the rearmament of Germany and Japan. Why did these two countries take such different paths? What factors led the Allied powers to adopt such contrasting policies towards the two major aggressors of the war? Grab a coffee and get ready to understand the complex dynamics of the Cold War and how they shaped the fate of two devastated nations. Historical context. World War II ended in 1945, leaving Germany and Japan in ruins, not just in terms of infrastructure, but morale as well. Both nations were under military occupation by the Allies, and their governments were restructured by foreign powers. Despite these similarities, each country followed a very distinct path. In this video, we'll compare how the different approaches of the Allies shaped the destiny of these nations, and why, eventually, rearmament was allowed in both, though in very different ways. Differences in Allied occupation. Let's begin with the military occupation of both countries. In Japan, the occupation was led by the United States under the command of General Douglas MacArthur. Japan's new constitution was drafted under American supervision, and in 1947, Article 9 was instituted, prohibiting Japan from maintaining an offensive military. The focus was on ensuring that Japan could no longer pose a military threat to the region. On the other hand, Germany was divided into two occupation zones, West and East, that soon became two separate nations, West Germany and East Germany. In West Germany, the occupation was divided between the US, the UK, and France, who quickly realized that the country not only needed to be rebuilt, but would also become a key pawn in containing communism, which was spreading from the Soviet bloc in Eastern Europe. As a result, West Germany began to be seen as a potential ally against the Soviet Union. Rearmament policies. Germany versus Japan. The situation of rearmament in Japan was completely different from Germany. The pressure for Japan to avoid maintaining offensive military forces was much stronger. The goal was to prevent any chance of a return to Japanese imperialism, which had devastated Asia. Thus, the Japan Self-Defense Forces were created, a military institution that technically cannot be called an army, focused solely on defense. The U.S. closely monitored these limitations and ensured that Japan remained focused on economic reconstruction and regional stability. West Germany, on the other hand, joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, in 1955. As part of NATO, Germany was not only allowed to rearm, but was encouraged to do so. Concerns about a possible Soviet invasion meant that the West needed all the military strength it could gather, and this included Germany, which became one of the main fronts of the Cold War in Europe. While Japan followed a strictly defensive policy, West Germany was rearming as part of a system of military alliances. International pressure and Cold War dynamics. Understanding the dynamics of the Cold War is essential to understanding the rearmament decisions of these two countries. In the case of West Germany, the Cold War made rearmament inevitable. The fear of a Soviet invasion of Western Europe led the US and its allies to believe that Germany needed to be a well-prepared frontline. The West Germans, led by Konrad Adenauer, accepted this as a necessary step towards reintegration with the West and economic recovery. In Japan, however, its proximity to sensitive regions like China and North Korea required tighter control over its military potential. The U.S. maintained a strong military presence in Japan, with bases ensuring the region's defense, while Japan focused on becoming an economic powerhouse. This difference is crucial. While Germany was seen as a potential military leader against communism, Japan was encouraged to become an economic leader, with the U.S. serving as its protector. Social and cultural repercussions. We cannot ignore the social impact of these rearmament policies. Both Japanese and German citizens had strong opposition to militarism, a reflection of the devastating consequences of World War II. In Japan, this was more intense, with a pacifist movement that remains strong to this day. Rearmament was viewed with suspicion, and even today, Article 9 is a symbol of Japan's commitment to peace. In Germany, however, the need for defense against a potential Soviet invasion made rearmament more acceptable to the public. The alliance with the US and entry into NATO were seen as ways to ensure security and prosperity, even with lingering concerns that militarism might return. East Germany in the Soviet bloc context. While West Germany was integrated into the Western Bloc, East Germany became part of the Soviet bloc. The Soviet occupation imposed a communist system, and militarization was directly supervised by the Soviet Union. So, while West Germany was preparing to defend against a potential Eastern invasion, East Germany was also developing military capabilities, but under the framework of the Warsaw Pact and in alignment with Soviet policies. This created a situation where both Germanys were militarized, but with opposing objectives, an ideological struggle reflected in all aspects of the Cold War. The role of Japan's self-defense forces. Returning to Japan, it's important to note how the self-defense forces developed over time. Although technically limited to defense, these forces grew significantly in size and capability. Over the decades, especially from the 1970s and 1980s, Japan began to modernize its military, although still under the label of self-defense. The rise of China as a military power and the unpredictable behavior of North Korea led Japan to reassess its stance on security. Today, Japan's self-defense forces are among the most technologically advanced in the world, even though they remain limited in terms of offensive action. Economic impact. Militarization and economic growth. Another interesting point of comparison is the economic impact of rearmament and reconstruction. In Japan, the decision not to heavily invest in military forces allowed the country to focus almost exclusively on economic recovery. American aid, known as the Dodge Plan, along with the absence of major military expenditures, led to what became known as the Japanese economic miracle. In just a few decades, Japan transformed into one of the world's largest economies, with companies like Sony, Toyota, and Mitsubishi becoming global leaders. West Germany, despite its rearmament, also experienced remarkable economic growth, known as the German economic miracle or Wirtschaftswunder. West Germany's integration into the Western economic system and the formation of the European Economic Community, EEC, helped strengthen its economy. Rearmament was seen as a strategic necessity, but investments in infrastructure and industry were equally crucial to ensuring stability and growth. Relations with the United States. Both West Germany and Japan established close relationships with the United States, but these relationships developed in different contexts. In West Germany's case, the U.S. was keen on creating a bulwark against the Soviet Union, ensuring that West Germany had sufficient military capabilities to act as a line of defense. For Japan, the U.S. acted as a protector and guarantor of regional security, allowing Japan to focus on its economic growth. The American military presence in Japan, with major bases like Okinawa, was a sensitive issue but ensured regional stability. Comparing defense policies in the 21st century, both Germany and Japan face new challenges regarding their defense policies. A reunited Germany has become a leader within the European Union and has expanded its role in international peacekeeping missions. However, there is still internal resistance to increasing military spending, a reflection of the country's militaristic past. Meanwhile, Japan, under the leadership of Shinzo Abe, began reinterpreting Article 9 of its constitution, allowing the self-defense forces to take on a more active role in international cooperation and even missions that could be considered offensive, such as peacekeeping operations and maritime security. The ongoing debate on militarism. Even today, the debate over militarism is heated in both countries. In Germany, Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 reignited discussions about the need to strengthen the country's military capabilities and those of its European partners. Chancellor Angela Merkel and her successor Olaf Scholz have faced internal debates on Germany's role in European defense and NATO, balancing the country's history with the need to avoid a return to aggressive militarism. In Japan, the growing threat from China and North Korea has led the country to consider broader revisions to its defense policies. Revising Article 9 remains a contentious issue, with a significant portion of the population fearing that any change could lead to military involvement that the country has avoided since the end of World War II. Contributions to global peace and diplomacy beyond their military policies. Both Germany and Japan have made significant contributions to global peace and diplomacy. Germany, after reunification, has been actively involved in peace negotiations and building a more united European Union. Germany's efforts in leading economic integration and diplomatic cooperation in Europe have made it an example of post-conflict national reconstruction based on values of peace and solidarity. Japan, meanwhile, has also played a major role in global initiatives, promoting peace and international aid. The country has been a strong advocate for nuclear disarmament and development assistance, offering economic and technical support to numerous developing nations. Japan has become a soft power force, using its economy and culture to promote a peaceful and influential image on the global stage. The role of education and historical memory, another essential aspect of these countries' trajectories, is how they have dealt with education and historical memory. Both Germany and Japan had to face the legacy of their actions during World War II, and this has deeply impacted subsequent generations. In Germany, there has been a strong commitment to teaching the history of the Holocaust and the atrocities committed by the Nazi regime, highlighting the importance of learning from past mistakes. Museums, memorials, and school curricula ensure that young Germans understand the consequences of militarism and intolerance. In Japan, the process has been a bit more complex. While Japan adopted a pacifist constitution and promoted the idea of a peace-oriented nation, the country still faces challenges in fully acknowledging its responsibility for wartime aggression. How history is taught in Japanese schools varies, and there are ongoing debates about Japan's role in the war and the lessons that should be learned. This contrast in how the two countries handle their past influences their foreign policy and global perceptions. Alliances and regional relations. Regional alliances and relations with neighbors also differ significantly between Germany and Japan. Germany has managed to reconcile with its European neighbors, particularly France, its former historic rival. The creation of the European Union and Franco-German cooperation were key to ensuring stability in Europe and overcoming the legacy of animosity. This reconciliation has become a model of how formerly warring nations can build a shared future based on common interests and economic cooperation. In Japan's case, relations with some of its neighbors remain complicated. The memory of Japanese occupation in China and Korea is still a sensitive issue, and tensions over territorial disputes and historical interpretations continue to influence diplomatic relations. While Japan has become an important partner of the United States and has significant economic ties in the region, historical tensions still limit greater integration with some of its Asian neighbors. Contributions to peacekeeping missions. Furthermore, contributions to international peacekeeping missions have played an important role in redefining both countries' military and political identities. Germany, as a member of NATO and the UN, has participated in several international peacekeeping missions. This participation has been a way for Germany to demonstrate its commitment to global security without adopting an aggressive stance, promoting international stability and reinforcing its role as a reliable actor in global politics. Japan, although constitutionally limited, has also been involved in peacekeeping missions, especially from the 1990s onward. Participation in humanitarian and reconstruction missions, such as in Cambodia and South Sudan, has helped redefine the role of Japan's self-defense forces and showcase its commitment to global peace within the confines of its pacifist constitution. These missions have allowed Japan to contribute to global security without violating its restrictive defense policy. Long-term consequences. Today, both Germany and Japan are strong and stable countries, but the marks of the post-war era are evident in their defense policies. West Germany was integrated into Europe's defense, taking a more active role in peacekeeping missions in NATO. Reunified Germany, while still cautious about militarism, is increasingly committed to contributing to European and global security. Japan, despite increasing its self-defense capabilities over the past few decades, remains constitutionally limited, and its population still actively debates the role of the self-defense forces in the global context. Japan's military forces are now some of the most technologically advanced, but the country continues to face a dilemma about how far it can go in expanding its military capabilities. Why these differences matter, to conclude a video like this, is to remember that history is not made of simple answers. Germany and Japan, two of the biggest aggressors in World War II, had contrasting post-war fates due to global politics, Cold War dynamics, and cultural perceptions within their societies. Understanding these differences helps explain why, today, these nations have such distinct roles on the global defense stage. While Germany has become a prominent voice in the European Union and a crucial ally within NATO, Japan stands out as an economic powerhouse that is gradually redefining its role in regional and international security. We hope this video has helped you reflect on how the past continues to shape the present and how the choices made over 70 years ago still influence the world we live in. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about post-war and Cold War dynamics, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. What other differences do you notice between Germany and Japan? Leave your opinion, and let's keep this fascinating conversation going.